Hey everybody, welcome to an episode of Sunnydale Review. I'm Brian.
I'm Jillian.
That kind of rhymed. I didn't intend it to rhyme, but it did, so I think from now on...
We're going to have to do that.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to do it. Jill.
Yes?
What are we talking about today?
We are talking about the 2-part pilot episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Very nice.
So it's Welcome to the Hellmouth and The Harvest, for those of you who are, following along here.
Yeah. And actually, kind of interesting. A lot of shows will just call it pilot, but we actually have a title for this episode.
Yeah.
Which is kind of rare. And it's also kind of fun. Maybe people won't find this funny, but I remember one of the first adult shows I ever watched was Lost. And the first episode was pilot part 1 and 2. And I thought that was pertaining to
Airplane pilot?
Yeah. For a long time.
It's no, they just weren't creative enough to come up with a title. They put all of their creativity into the actual storyline of the show and then just kind of winged it with the...
But anyways, we actually have real titles for this.
Yes.
And if you are just finding this podcast on episode 2, go back and watch episode 1 where we introduced ourselves and talked a little bit about the unaired pilot, which I don't know if that actually did have a name other than unaired pilot. We
no, it's
didn't
unaired
call
pilot.
And
it was never meant to be a real episode. It was just meant to help get them picked up. So,
right.
Yeah, we talked about that. So it's a fun episode. You should go check it out. We worry that Brian is a little bit too trusting of strangers.
Apparently I'm going to get murdered by a vampire.
Definitely would have gotten himself killed in the theater by a vampire in high school.
Maybe turned into one, like a character in this episode.
Yeah.
Well, I guess technically the second episode.
The second half of the first episode. They both aired on the same day.
Right.
So it's okay.
So when did this come out?
So Buffy premiered on March 3rd, 1997. So for those of you who don't know, there is a Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie that came out. The show is technically canon.
Okay.
With
the film.
With the film.
Yeah.
So when you hear Buffy talk about how she got kicked out of her old school, burning down the gym, all that stuff, that's the stuff that happened in the movie. So it is technically canon.
Okay. That's actually really good to know because obviously when I started the series, I'm 100% sure I just stumbled upon a random season 3 episode and then just watched through. And then by the time it came back around on FX, I didn't put 2 and 2 together that there was one, even a movie, and then 2, that the movie might actually have anything to do with the show until recently when we were talking about it. So, I think it is interesting for her to talk a little bit about, I burnt down a gym, or I guess the principal, lets us know about that. And then it's a continuing thing for at least the first season. But it's interesting that actually is, obviously different actors and actresses and
However,
all that. However,
it was still created by Joss Whedon, technically. So Joss Whedon, creator, director of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or at least all of the good episodes, let's be honest. Sorry, Marty. So he was the one who came up with the entire kind of idea around Buffy, which is normally in horror movies, you have the blonde girl goes into some dark, scary place, usually an alley or an abandoned street, whatever, gets herself killed. Wouldn't it be funny if the blonde girl was the one who, the guy comes after her, tries to attack her, the blonde girl turns around and kicks his ass.
right.
So that's really the premise of where Buffy started. So he was the one who came up with that idea. He wrote the movie. However, he did not direct the movie. So the directors took it, turned it into a campy comedy type situation, which Joss didn't love. So when...
Oh, I can't imagine why.
Joss Whedon, by the way, for those of you who don't know, he wrote and directed Marvel's Avengers and the sequel, Avengers Age of Ultron. He originally wrote the 1992 movie. He also has a co-writing credit on Toy Story,
right?
Which I love. I'm sorry.
I'm
such a
reshoots for Justice League.
Yeah.
Right? Justice League?
I think so.
Yeah. But people didn't really like that movie. But there are definitely moments in it where it's he wrote this part.
Oh, yeah.
With the Batman throwing the thing at Flash and it going by him and them being all quippy. I was yeah, okay, he made this a reshoot.
It's there's some Joss in here, you can tell.
Pretty much anything that was in the trailer that made you want to see the movie
was Joss.
Yeah. And then we got there, like, oh, this is not actually good. Oh, no.
He also has a co-writing credit, and he directed Dr. Horrible Sing-Along blog, which is fantastic.
So good.
If you haven't seen it, go see it, please. I'm begging you. It's so good.
One of those rare things where people are like, this is amazing, and you watch it and you're like, yeah, that actually was amazing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Neil Patrick Harris. How can you go wrong? But I mean, and Felicity Day.
Right.
And Nathan Fillion.
Right. Oh, yeah. Nathan. That actually introduced me to Nathan Fillion because I hadn't watched Firefly, and I was like, who is this guy? He's amazing.
Yeah.
He really is.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
I'm not spoiling anything.
You're definitely going to say he was in an episode of Community, obviously.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So also just love shows with him. Firefly, Serenity, Dollhouse, Cabin in the Woods. Half of those were movies. I know I said shows. Don't worry about it. Just go look them up. And
Yeah.
There was another movie recently called Serenity, but it is not the same Serenity. Make sure you're watching the Joss Whedon one.
The actual Serenity.
But watch Firefly first, or else it's not going to make any sense.
Yeah. And watch Cabin in the Woods and watch the 2 videos we made.
Yes.
On Wicked Everything. Which is one was a watch along and one's just like a review talking about it.
Yeah, I definitely stepped out of the watch along at the right time. I had seen the movie before and I knew it was coming, and yeah. I also spend like about half of that episode hiding behind a pillow. So
yeah, well, I think it was good because Jenny doesn't like horror movies, but because you were there and also not like
we had
into
a
the horror
solidarity.
elements, exactly. I think that made her more open to like doing more of that kind of stuff.
I feel you, girl. So yeah, just coming back to Buffy here for a minute. So Buffy was a mid-season replacement for a show called Savannah. Thus, the show had a very, very tiny budget,
Right.
and is basically half of a first season of a regular show. So it's only 12 episodes rather than your normal like 22 to 24 episodes.
Yeah, so the way it usually works is if a show is in the fall, where normally shows premiere, they'll get 13 episodes, and then if people like it, they'll get a back 9. They'll get 22 episodes. That's a season. Sometimes shows don't last, like Savannah, I presume. I've never seen it, so I can't say if that was the first season or not. I've never heard of it.
That's why it got replaced.
Yeah. It did not get picked up, and they put Buffy in its place, and then that went on to have lots of seasons and spin-offs and build like an empire, and now we're talking about it years later. So that's where we are with that. Although, like I said, it's usually like 13 episodes is the first season, so 12. Interesting.
I mean, there's definitely some episodes they could have cut out and not really lost much, but
I think, yeah, there's definitely one that I can think of where it's like, this is so weird. Why is this here?
Yeah. So one other thing I do want to mention before we get too far into this is a lot of the information that I have, I got off of Passion of the Nerd, which is another YouTube Buffy.
He's great. I was watching his videos yesterday.
Oh my god, he's so good. So what he does is deep dives into each of the individual episodes, looking at like psychology and like the myths and metaphors, and there's so many levels to this show. It's amazing. So a lot of the information that I have, I did get from him. Just want to give credit where credit's due. I love him so dearly.
We'll put a link to his channel down below and in the iTunes description.
So if you want to see a deeper dive into each of the individual episodes, please go check him out. He's amazing.
Yeah. Dream guest one day.
Yes. Okay, my fangirl moment is over. Thank you for that. Let's get into Welcome to the Hellmouth.
Let's do it.
Okay, so just for some background information here, it originally aired March 3rd, 1997, or March 10th, depending on if you're looking at Wikipedia, but I go by the dates that were in the inserts in my DVDs.
Okay. That seems like they'd know, right?
Yeah.
They're like making the DVD. They'd be like, yeah, we were there. We know this premiered this day.
So it's either March 3rd or March 10th, 1997. It was over 10 years ago. We'll just go with March.
Yeah. Some would say it was over 20 years ago.
Over 20 years. I can do math.
Yeah. No. Well, it's also part of like accepting like, oh, the 90s were 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm old. Jesus.
I'm older than you. Don't go there. Okay. So the original episode, Welcome to the Hellmouth. It was written by Joss, of course, because it's awesome, and it was directed by Charles Martin Smith.
Okay.
Basically, the synopsis is Buffy Summers, a high school sophomore, transfers to Sunnydale High. There, she meets her new Watcher and learns she cannot escape her true destiny. One thing to know about Buffy as a whole is that the show does not conform to one genre stereotype. So it's a drama, it's comedy, it's horror, it's a lot in a show.
Even,
yes.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why it's so cool. Like the melding of all these different genres together, and it actually is like hilarious.
Oh yeah.
Like when it's funny, it's as funny as a lot of comedic only shows. So yeah. And then of course Buffy kicks ass.
Yes.
Like it's dope. I love the show. That's why we're doing a podcast on it.
Oh, also, some of my information, at least for this episode or the 2-part pilot episode, also did come from the writer commentary with Joss Whedon.
Okay.
So yeah, yes, I watched all of the episodes twice to to watch the commentary as well.
Yes. That's commitment. That's the commitment we need to succeed.
I mean, if you're gonna own all the DVDs like I do, and they have the commentaries, why wouldn't you watch them? They're awesome.
That's true.
So, little note from Joss. He said, the first thing I ever thought of when I thought Buffy the movie was this little blonde girl who goes into a dark alley and gets killed in every horror movie.
Okay.
The idea of Buffy was to subvert that idea, that image, and create someone who was a hero where she had always, where before that kind of girl in those movies had always been the victim.
Right.
That element of surprise, that element of genre busting is very much at the heart of both the movie and the TV series. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's definitely even in Cabin in the Woods, it's still the trope in that movie. But I think having a character like Buffy, played really wonderfully by Sarah Michelle Gellar, being not only she'll kick your ass, but she'll also be incredibly witty and fun and an actual caring friend. I think she's an incredibly important character in just the history of movies and television shows. She is really the prototype strong female character, in my opinion. I'm sure a lot of people have that same opinion, but I think this show and Joss making this kind of subversion of the trope is important to the history of characters, and shows what you can do when you just take a really well-known story and just twist it a little bit, and where that can kind of go from there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Which, fun fact, Sarah Michelle Gellar originally was cast as Cordelia.
Really? She was originally cast as Cordelia?
Yes.
Oh, I knew she auditioned. That's hilarious.
Yeah, but then they were having trouble finding a Buffy, and they were like, we could try it out with Sarah. And then they got Charisma Carpenter to come in and play Cordelia.
She's so good.
I can't imagine anybody else coming in and playing Cordelia the way that she did. She is such Queen Bee.
And one of the best arcs, over all the shows, too.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
I mean, she's wonderful. But that's so weird. Imagine a world. And
I do wonder if they would have turned her blonde. I can't imagine Charisma Carpenter as I know that she has been blonde in the past, the actress, but I can't imagine teenage Charisma Carpenter.
No, yeah, I know.
As a blonde.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah. I don't know. Let's see. Oh, Joss made a comment in his commentary, because that's what commentaries are. Are they?
Yeah,
comments?
No, I've heard.
That he said even the theme song of the show goes along with the mission. It starts out very, very horror, then it goes straight into rock, which shows how Buffy is the girl who has no patience for the horror movie setup,
right?
And will just go straight in with a rockin' attitude and kick butt.
I like that. I love the theme song. Obviously, of course, it has one nostalgia too.
It's so
I just
iconic.
like the show, but yeah, I think it is a really dope theme song. I don't know, and
yeah.
You hear it and you're like, oh, I'm ready. I'm ready for this episode now. I don't know. I think it's cool.
Yeah. And do you know who actually was the one to bring... Don't look at my notes. Do you know who was the one to bring that, at least if not the song, the band to Joss Whedon's attention?
Well, now that I can't see your notes, I have no idea.
Alison Hannigan.
Really?
Really.
So I think it's funny, while we're on the topic of bands, because it's something I want to pick up, a lot of the bands in the Bronze are like real bands at the time. And so it kind of like sets up this weird dynamic where like every episode there's like 10 seconds of just hero shots of the band playing music.
Well, it's because a lot of them were unsigned at the time. They were just starting out, so they were a lot cheaper.
Right.
And the show had no budget. And most of the budget had to go to the special effects.
Right.
So they would get these awesome but unsigned bands to come in and play at the Bronze. The Bronze is the local like club.
Right. That lets teenagers in.
Very confusing because they serve
Very
alcohol,
weird.
but they let teenagers in, and it's where all the teenagers go.
All the time. Every night.
Yeah.
Every single night they're like, oh, we're going to the Bronze, obviously. Like to the point where it's like if an adult is going to that, it's like,
It's weird.
Greg, you got a drinking problem. Like you can't be going out every night. You have responsibilities, man.
The only time they're closed is the time between the pre-fumigation party and the post-fumigation
Right?
party.
Yeah.
When they actually do the fumigation of the cockroaches.
But you gotta keep it. You gotta keep it like just because if it was too clean, it probably would lose like its appeal. But also, you gotta not have cockroaches.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I get that. But yeah, so the payment for the bands is like, all right, we well, who knows? Maybe they did pay him, but like another payment was like just 10 seconds of every episode is just devoted to like pans and like Dutch angled shots of you guys just rocking out.
So let's get into the actual episode now.
Oh yeah, we probably should, right?
So we start out with Darla going into the high school with some guy. I don't know if he's ever actually named.
This doesn't matter.
No. And so she's dressed like a prep school or like a private school girl.
Yeah.
And it's this guy being like, oh, let's break into the school, and oh, isn't this super like sexy romantic that we're breaking into this high school in the middle of the night, and oh, it's so creepy, like, oh my god.
It's great we're committing a crime. This is wonderful.
She's like, do you go to school here? I used to. It's like, okay, so this is a college guy
Jesus.
breaking into his old high school.
Yeah, I'm not even sad that he died, honestly. But it is like a fun, like, moment. Of course they needed that because it's like, oh, another subversion of the trope.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, she's going to get murdered. Like when I was watching this episode with Jenny, she's like, don't do it, girl. Get out of there. And I'm just like,
Oh, girl, if only you knew.
Just you wait 10 seconds.
So they break into the school. They go to the theater. And the guy is all like, ooh, this is so sexy. And then the girl, Darla, turns around and is like, huh, I'm going to eat you.
Yeah.
And
so
she's a vampire.
we're introduced to the vampire makeup. What are your opinions on it? Because I think that's a polarizing topic,
In the early seasons, it was a lot more bat-like. I am very glad they softened it up later on. It's a little overkill. They end up looking a little bit pasty, and hello, white as can be, and I'm calling them pasty. Like, but I do know that in one of the episodes, Joss commented that they tried to give, when the actors were in that vamp makeup, they tried to give them as few lines as possible because the teeth would make them like talk really funny.
Yeah.
He's like, it wasn't scary. They sounded like muffled and like they were struggling to talk.
Well, because they were.
They were.
Yeah. I think I like it because in this universe, it's very like clear, and they say it especially with what happens with Jesse. It's like these are demons in human bodies. They're not humans anymore. They're like, so it's like the manifestation of that demon, like the actual. Because a lot of times I feel like with vampires, it's like, well, they're just people, and then they have fangs, and that's it. But this like makes them actually like scary, and it does kind of look goofy by today's standards, sure. But I think it does a good job to like kind of have that real transition between it's like they're so dangerous because they're these monsters that can pass as a normal human, and then they'll
another reason they did that too was that Joss thought it would look really bad having Buffy kill normal looking people.
Really?
So they needed to make them look drastically different so that it was
like monsters.
so that it was like okay.
That's cool. I didn't know that. That makes sense though.
Yeah.
When you like think about it, because when Buffy stabs them and they explode, you're like, yeah, fuck that guy.
Well, that was another reason that they had them dust as well, was because they didn't want to have a plot point in the show of showing the kids getting rid of bodies.
I never thought about that.
We'll just have them explode into dust, and then there's no cleanup.
But I love that. Like, that's just part of what like makes Buffy so unique. Is like, that when the vampires die, and it makes it like for really cool kills. Like someone gets their head cut off, and then it's like turned into dust. Like, and sun, they'll just. I don't know. It's cool. It makes it unique, and then it makes it for me who was really introduced to vampires with Buffy. Like when I'm watching, like Jenny watching Vampire Diaries, I'm like, so they're just a body. She's like, yeah, like they don't turn to dust. She's like, no, I'm like that's only a Buffy thing. Damn, I had no idea.
Yeah.
So.
Which I was a Vampire Diaries fan for a while.
Right. It's a good show. But,
it was.
like, I'm sure Jenny was real annoyed. We're like, oh, and Buffy, they do this?
Yeah.
Like, it's very nice.
Yeah.
But this is Vampire Diaries. Please stop telling me every 5 minutes about what Buffy does.
And how it's better. Because it is. So let's see. So that all happens. Then we have Buffy on her first day of school. Mm-hmm. She's kind of stressed out about, like... I have to start a new school, like, blah, blah, blah. And
doesn't really want to be the Slayer anymore.
Yeah, and
that's the whole thing.
Her mom, I'm pretty sure it's in this episode. I should have rewatched this yesterday. But her mom's like, I just don't want to be disappointed in you again. I was like, wow, Joyce. Wow. Like, No.
She's forgiving in the sense that it's like she burnt down a building. A school building. She didn't even go to jail.
I mean, no, that wouldn't have been Joyce's choice.
No, but I mean, like, Buffy got off lucky.
Yeah. She's like, I just don't want to have to relocate again.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's
which, like, I can get it, but, like,
and
do you have to say that to your kid as she's getting out of the car heading to her first day of school? Like, pick your moment, Joyce.
She's going to set the ground rules. She's got to rattle her before she goes in there. Keep her on her toes. I mean, from Joyce's perspective, in fairness to her daughter is going out at night. Like, she doesn't know where she's at. Like, she's not doing great in school, and then she burnt down a building. Like, I get it. And she's a single mom because Buffy's dad's just like, like a
absent
vampire just dusting out of there. Like,
oh my God. Oh, we'll get to that. Okay, so we have the entrance of Xander on a skateboard.
Yes, for the only time ever.
Only time ever, because they found it was too complicated to light him. To light and shoot him riding the skateboard.
Place. That makes sense.
So he never rides the skateboard again. And I think they very quickly like take the skateboard away, so it's not like obvious that he just, because in the entire unaired pilot he just walks around holding a skateboard all the time.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of weird. Like, it's like an accessory.
Yeah, I don't even remember. Does he pick it up after he wipes out? Like,
I think so. Well, because he hits the railing.
Yeah.
Which looked like it hurt.
Yeah, that's not fun.
I think Nikki Brandon did do that stunt. I'm pretty sure. But so
to be a star, you gotta get some bumps and bruises.
Oh my God. Okay, wait. Do we want to talk about Jesse?
Yeah. Well,
do we want to talk about what happens to Jesse yet? Maybe
let's
not yet.
kind of like lead it up to it, but yeah. So there's a group of 3 friends at this school. And they're Xander, Jesse, and their friend Willow. And they're a gang, little squad of outcasts. And honestly, the way it's set up, even though I always forget about Jesse, as I said in the last episode, just like Jesse.
He's so important. How could you?
And he has his own lines. Like, they have moments when he gets like rejected where he's like making a quip. And you're like, oh yeah, this is just one of the characters. He's one of the main characters of this show. So they do a really good job in setting that up. But then I do think. And if they ever reboot Buffy, I know people have said that that's a possibility. I would like to see if they include a Jesse character more like mourning the loss of their friend than they did in the original show. I think that's like one of the parts I'm just like, this is so weird. Like, if my childhood friend died when I was a sophomore, I would talk about it sometimes.
Honestly, best friend ever, never mention again.
Yep, exactly.
But we'll get to that.
Right.
So one of Joss's comments was Allison Hannigan was so good at playing the vulnerability and being okay, what does that mean? I don't remember. I wrote these notes over a year ago. Like, I'm sorry.
Oh my God, I'm sorry.
So Joss said that Allison Hannigan was so good at playing the vulnerability that they found that her character really like opened people's hearts. People got very attached to Willow because they just want to like protect her.
Yeah, no, she's definitely like everyone has a friend like that.
Oh yeah,
like you're so innocent. Like
yeah.
I don't want anything to ever happen to you bad. Right. Like
that was me.
Exactly. So it's like you gotta watch out for them, which is actually why it's like makes it important that she's the one who's kind of in distress.
Yeah.
Obviously Jesse too, but
oh yeah. And then so Anthony Stewart Head. They refer to him a lot as Tony, and they refer to Nicholas Brandon a lot as Nicky.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know what the actors prefer, but Anthony Stewart Head was someone they immediately cast after seeing him. They hadn't originally planned for the Giles character to be British,
Really?
But after seeing Anthony Stewart Head, they were just like, "Yep." So he was the first person cast for the show.
That makes sense. He's so good.
Oh, he's amazing. So they said that many actors who auditioned for the role of Giles were being very like stuffy and old and like boring exposition guy, where Anthony came in and he had like this undercurrent of youth and someone who could like connect with the kids because he was still trying to figure out his own life.
Right.
Because he had also like they have it in like the canon of the show that he had just moved from curating some museum in England and decided to become a high school librarian in California, which doesn't make any sense, but like okay.
Right. Well, so is that a cover story for like because the Watchers
obviously.
are like an order, like an ancient order,
Yeah.
with the Slayers. So that was like a cover story, right? Like he wasn't
Well,
really
yeah.
okay. Yeah.
No, it's a cover story, but like the cover story doesn't make any sense.
Did Donald Sutherland, because that's who plays the Watcher in the movie,
Yeah.
did he die? Is that why Buffy like is like I don't want like
I think so.
Yeah, that's sad. That's not fun.
Well, that's why she was so upset because her old Watcher had died, and yeah.
I mean, I get it. I wouldn't want.
Yeah.
After having that happen, I'd be out on the whole thing too. But
Yeah.
So I think it adds like an interesting dynamic. And I think too, like with having Giles be played by, he's probably what in his 30s ish, like
Yeah.
that area. Like he still like makes like when he has romantic subplots and stuff. You're like, I buy this. Like,
Yeah.
He's just a normal dude, other than being part of a ancient order.
Yeah. I want to say he's like early to mid 30s.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's old enough. There's a slight undercurrent in the show that Willow has a major crush on him, which I think is freaking adorable. And if you can pick up on like the little telltale signs of it, like she has a picture of her and Giles in her locker.
I mean,
there's a couple other moments sprinkled within the show, and it's just kind of adorable.
and it could kind of make sense if she's like pretty nerdy, like he's like for like a nerdy archetype, like a cool British librarian. Like it makes sense. I get it, Willow.
So one thing to bring up in the original pilot episode is that because the show was based in Sunnydale, which is a fake town, but it's within California, they had a lot of California speak.
Right.
So one thing that Joss brought up was that the California speak was toned down in later episodes. And the writers geared like the way of talking more toward the way that they speak instead of how they thought teenagers would speak. Which
I think that's better because let's be honest, I couldn't write how a teenager speaks right now. I'd be like saying shit like, "Let's make a TikTok, guys," and I'm sure no one says that.
Please never say that again.
Yeah, exactly. No one would like it. It wouldn't. So if you just make it normal, it's gonna sound a lot better.
So this geared or this may have had like all the difference because it made the teenage characters in the show feel more real and relatable.
Right.
Not just from a regional standpoint, but also they didn't have this era of like as adults, here's how we think teenagers speak.
It never works out well.
No.
And you can always tell, like, in old shows or even current shows where, like, they're trying to, like, add slang which they don't understand and making teenagers say it. It actually kind of reminds me, if I can go off topic a little bit. So, Bo Burnham wrote his movie 8th Grade, right? And he said that a lot of, like, that movie has to do with, like, people talking on Facebook. And when he met the actress who starred, as the character, she's actually, like, 13, 14 years old. And she's like, yeah, no one uses Facebook anymore. And he's like, oh, okay. And, like, let her kind of help him rewrite it. And, like, I think it was Instagram was, like, the platform of choice in that movie, which I think is good. I think maybe consult an actual teenager if you're going to try to, like, relate to the youth, or it comes out really out of touch.
Yeah.
Or just, write a period piece about 10 years ago when you were a kid, and then you'll know everything. Mm-hmm. So, anyways.
So segueing that, if
Yes.
I may. So one thing about the way that at least the main group of characters in the show are written, it's kind of like, depending on who you are, you could really relate to any or all of the characters.
Right.
Because, like, if you feel like, a vulnerable nerd, then you can relate more to Willow. If you feel more of, like, Xander really doesn't have, like, an identifier. Like, he's not a nerd.
Right.
He's not a skater.
Right.
He's not, like, a dude bro.
Right.
He's not a jock.
Yeah.
He's kind of just, like, normal.
Yeah.
So if you relate more to that, you can. If you want to relate more to Buffy, someone who is strong and witty and quippy and, can hold her own in a fight, and you can relate to her. And I mean, even if you want to relate to more than one, because there's aspects that you see in these characters where you relate to this character on this level, but then you relate to this one on this level. Like, you can totally do that. So there's definitely, like, room for your heart to be attached to any and all of the characters.
Right.
Which is really nice.
Yeah, no, I think for me, like, Buffy, I wish is how I, like, wish I could be, like, where she's quip, like, all the time. And then Xander not being able to talk to people very well is way more realistic to how I am in real life. So it's a good mix.
Yeah.
And then, of course, being kind of nerdy is, like, I felt like Willow struggles a lot, too.
So the Hellmouth, being it's kind of like, so the idea is that Sunnydale High School is built on this Hellmouth, which is like this convergence of evil energy that tends to attract demons toward the school.
Right.
Which from a budgetary standpoint made sense, so that they wouldn't have to have as many sets.
Right.
But
Good point.
So the Hellmouth was originally pitched as, like, the idea that it is the reason that all matter of supernatural monsters are attracted to Sunnydale. This also made sense to Joss on an emotional level, because high school was like hell to many people.
Right. Yep.
So it's like, when you're in high school, the high school is kind of the center of your world, and it being hell, and yeah.
Yeah. And I also think it adds, and this is maybe just in my own head, but it's like, bad stuff happens at this high school.
Yeah.
And it kind of, like, makes sense that if there's, like, a mystical element, like, interacting with the people there, it's like, in their minds, it's not as weird as if people are getting murdered every week at a real high school.
Yeah.
Like, to them, because it's, like, this mystical place, they're just like, yeah,
It's
people get killed here.
I love in this show how Joss came up with reasonings for a lot of things. Like, the reason that we have Vamp's dust is because we don't want the kids getting rid of dead bodies.
Right.
The reason that all this stuff goes down at the high school is because, there's a Hellmouth under the high school that it kind of attracts it. The reason that, we do this is because of this. Like, there aren't, like, at least in my eyes, there aren't, like, glaring plot holes as to, like, okay, why the hell is all of this happening here?
No, and I wonder if, because obviously it's hard to be like, okay, Buffy could be in the real world, and then, like, in other of the shows, like Angel, it expands outside of Sunnydale, where, like, oh, this is happening, but it's, like, underground, in, like, major cities, whereas, like, Sunnydale is just I guess LA eventually becomes more like Sunnydale in the later seasons.
A little bit, yeah.
But yeah, it's just like everything can happen here. Like, we'll hold that thought when we go to another episode soon. There's something that like happens where it's just like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. There's a Hellmouth here for this like magical thing to happen to somebody. I think you know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Okay, so a couple other notes. This episode is the first appearance of Angel,
Yes.
who I love him. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. Who doesn't? He's actually like probably one of the most underrated in terms of like successful actors in Hollywood. He's been on TV all the time since 1997. There's not been a year where he has not been on a primetime television show.
For those of you who haven't seen Bones, you should go see Bones.
It's so good.
It's
so good. I haven't seen his new show, in fairness, SEAL Team. But
I'm sorry.
I'm just not really interested in that. You know, like, I don't know. It seems very like macho guy. Not for me, but hey, good for him.
Yeah.
Also, kind of related because, you know, vampires, bats, whatever. He was originally Christopher Nolan's choice to play Batman in Batman Begins. Like, he had signed up and he was going to be Christian Bale's character, you know, Bruce Wayne. And then he had to drop out because it conflicted with Bones. But it's a very, like, what if?
Oh
Like,
my
if
God.
he had been Batman, he could be one of the biggest movie stars today. And we would have maybe not had Christian Bale like we have him now. So very interesting.
That would have been awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean, well,
Oh my
obviously as
God,
fans of Angel and Buffy, like, we're like, oh yeah, definitely. But it's interesting. Like, obviously his career's been great. He probably doesn't regret it.
Well,
It's
no,
also
I have my own problems with Christian Bale playing Batman. Only because, okay, slight tangent.
Sure.
I grew up with Newsies. Newsies, on record, is one of the few movies that Christian Bale actually regrets doing. It was a 1992 musical about the New York newsboy strike. But
Based on the play, right?
no.
No, there's no play?
Okay, there is a play.
Or did it come after this movie?
It's based on the movie.
Oh my God.
The movie came first.
It's like Footloose. Where, like, I assumed Footloose was based on the play because all the songs are in the movie but not like performed. And then someone told me, I was like, no, they based it off of the movie. What?
Okay, no. The movie is from 1992. Was at least I don't remember. I think Kenny Ortega directed, if not also wrote it. He also did a ton of my other favorite movies from childhood, including Hocus Pocus. But and then went on to choreograph for High School Musical, but we won't talk about that. But
Hey, you gotta get paid, you know.
But so I had a problem with Batman seeing Christian Bale, the guy who I always think of as Jack Kelly from Newsies, playing Batman. But that's my own problems. And
You got really jacked for it though.
he did.
That helps, right?
Yeah.
All right.
And then they recast Anne Hathaway. No, it was originally Katie Holmes. And then they recast her.
Yeah, because she had to make mad money instead of The Dark Knight. Yeah, I know.
Katie Holmes, I love you.
Oh man, we're all just happy you're out of Tom Cruise's grasp.
Oh my God, I'm such a Dawson's Creek fan too, and I'm sorry.
Right.
Okay, so anyway, getting back to Buffy here.
That actually is a good point too, because it's like you can see Christopher Nolan was like, I want good actors from TV, and he still does this today in a lot of his movies, like where he'll cast like lesser known or like television actors to be like parts in his, you know, bigger movies, which is.
I don't think Katie Holmes was lesser known.
Well, you know, for like, especially like in the beginning of the 2000s, where it's like TV actors are TV actors and movie actors are movie actors. Now it's like way more like friggin' Anthony Hopkins is on Westworld. Like, it is way like less of a, you know, wall in between where people only view TV actors as TV actors. You know what I mean? I feel like you don't agree with that.
Somebody back me up here in the comments, please. Anyway, getting back to Buffy. Because I will fight you over this Katie Holmes thing. So anyway, we get the first appearance of Angel. He gives Buffy the cross necklace, which becomes very iconic in the series.
And important in this episode.
Oh, yes.
Next episode.
So Joss actually said that Angel was the most difficult to cast.
Because you need to find someone as handsome as David Boreanaz to be there.
David didn't actually audition.
No.
The story is that they were trying to find someone who was he was supposed to be the pinnacle of
he's David Boreanaz is essentially he's a good looking guy, and he was really good looking back then. Angel, it's his name. He looks like an angel.
Yeah. But they were having a really hard time casting him. And somebody said to, I think it was Marty Noxon. I could be wrong on that. But that's the kind of guy you're looking for. There's a guy who walks his dog on my street every day who fits that perfectly. And they tracked him down and cast him in the show.
Was he even an actor?
I don't know. He might not have been. I'm not entirely sure.
Hey, I want you to be in this
I've heard different
TV show. And he was probably thinking, 50-50 chance I'm getting murdered by this man, but I guess I'll take it.
Let's see. What else? I have a comment in here, but I think it might be a spoiler, so we're going to hold on to that.
Oh, yeah.
So let's see. Willow's crush and history with Xander is explained with a conversation between Buffy and Willow, which I think is adorable. We get the line, "Seize the day, because tomorrow you might be dead."
Oof, yeah.
It's the 90s version of YOLO. And I do have a note in here that says, "Not sure how these high school kids are allowed in a club that serves alcohol."
Well, I guess Cordelia's you should come to the Bronze League, don't ID.
Yeah.
It's this place didn't get shut down. It's openly. That bouncer is just well, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, the bouncer never turns anybody away.
No.
Not once.
Just give me money and you're in.
Right?
I don't care.
So one thing with the show is that Giles is very stereotypical horror movie driven. And then in Buffy keeps like turning him down and being like, no, I'm gonna do things my own way.
Right.
He's like, you have to take this seriously. She's like, I am taking it seriously, but I'm also gonna go out and have fun.
Yeah. It was like, but yeah, I think this is such an interesting dynamic where, like we said, she's just lost her watcher. She's over being the Slayer. She just wants a normal life, which understandably, like, who wants to be forced to fight the forces of darkness when you're 17?
Yeah.
Like, sucks.
Joss makes a funny comment of, ever want to put the pull on the viewer's heartstrings? Put Willow in danger.
Yes.
Physically
true.
or emotionally. It's so true. Let's see. I could talk about this now.
What's that?
I could talk about this now.
Yeah.
Jesse.
Yeah, so Jesse. So basically the whole thing, a lot of introduction of characters. We get to the Bronze. Jesse is trying to hook up with girls. It's not going well.
No.
It's going really bad. In fact,
specifically Cordelia. He has a thing for Cordelia.
Yeah, which I guess maybe Xander's not that sad that he dies, because he's like, all right, open it up for me.
Might be a little premature on that one.
Right. But yeah, so he's really into her. She's not into him at all.
No.
Cordelia's so funny in this first episode. She's awful. She's so just terror. I hate her so much, but it's like funny because eventually you do like end up liking her a lot. But
so it's really funny going back, like knowing her arc.
Yeah.
And being like, oh my God, she was awful, but I still love her.
And it's great too because like she slowly becomes, well, I don't know if I want to spoil anything. I don't know if this is spoil. Anyways, Cordelia, very off-putting in this episode. So mean. Just so mean to everybody.
Right.
Like, even that girl who's her friend, she's like talking and then she tries to interject. She's like, oh my God, can I get a word in? It's just hilarious. But yeah, so Buffy's actually kind of friends with her at first.
Yeah.
Honestly, they could have had like a friendship if Cordelia wasn't the worst and Buffy didn't almost murder her.
So the idea is that they're at the Bronze and Buffy is up on like I don't even know what that's called. Like there's like an upstairs with a railing at the Bronze where you
like
can look down and see everybody dancing. And she's looking down and Giles is there with her for some reason. He like tracked her down to the Bronze. And he's like, look onto the look into the crowd and like, is there a vampire here? Do you know? Like, you should just instinctually know. And she's like, there's one.
Yeah.
He's like, no, you're supposed to like use your instincts and like think about it and look out onto the ground. She's like, that one.
Right.
He's like, how do you know? She's like, look at that jacket. Like, nobody wears those kind of clothes anymore. You'd have to be living under a rock to still think that's cool. And she looks down, sees this guy, and he's flirting with Willow.
Of course.
Oh, Willow. Sweetie. And of course, Willow has just had this conversation with Buffy, where Buffy's like, girl, seize the day. So Willow's like, okay, I'll put myself out there. And of course, puts herself out there, finds a vampire, or vampire finds her. So Buffy runs down to try to save her, but can't find her in the crowd. Oh, also, I'm sorry. When they're up in like the balcony area, Giles is standing way too close to Buffy.
Yeah, actually, Jenny had a comment about this. She was like, if you just saw this, you would be like, oh, the librarian's a creep. What the fuck? Why is he here? And why is he like so close to the new girl and like whispering in her ear?
Because she's like up against the railing looking over, and he's like behind her with an arm on either side.
Oh,
and I'm
so
like,
bad.
I'm like, I know, having known these two characters, it's okay, but it's also not okay.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not a good look.
So just keep in mind, if you're watching the series, this was 22 years ago.
Yeah.
So
where it was fine if librarians and teachers did is what we're saying.
No, it's not okay. Well, maybe television
was different.
Shows and movies were just not as conscious of how it could come off, and also it was probably like a shooting thing. Like, we need to be able to have this shot, but we also need to see their two faces, so we need to make them like really close together. I'm sure there was a technical aspect of why they did it.
Yeah.
This is totally just me justifying it, but it's okay.
Like you said, if they do remake it, having like a side scene about like maybe two characters being like, that guy's kind of a creep, right?
Like,
so if you do remake it, we'll be those characters from this, and be like, that librarian's kind of a weirdo.
Hey, isn't that the high school librarian?
Yeah, it's why is he?
He's standing really close to her, isn't he?
That's not okay. I wasn't gonna go to the library anyways. I'm definitely not going to the library.
I need to go pick up a book tomorrow. Will you come with me?
Yeah, that's probably good.
I don't want to go alone.
So, that's our audition. Hit us up on Twitter, Wicked Good Everything. Let us know. Anyways, Willow gets taken. Well, not taken, but led away.
So the dude in the jacket, that's what I'm going to call him right now.
Yeah.
The dude in the jacket decides, hey, let's go run through the graveyard, because that seems like a fun thing to do. So they play a game of like chase me through the graveyard. And he leads her back to this mausoleum, and all of a sudden, who comes in but Jesse and Darla?
Yeah, because Jesse's talking to a girl in like a weird swing in the bronze.
Yep.
She turns around. Oh, they like, we need this swing for the shot. It's important.
Yeah.
So we can turn around and have her be Darla. And like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah. So this was after he had just gotten shot down for probably the 10,000 millionth time by Cordelia. And he goes over and finds Darla, and they just start chatting.
Yeah.
And so you get the dude in the jacket, Willow, Jesse, and Darla in this mausoleum. And you're like, oh, God, this isn't good. Because at this point, you figured out that the dude in the jacket and Darla are both vampires. And you're like, oh, no, this is going to be the end of Willow and Jesse.
Yeah.
And then Buffy finds them and starts fighting with the dude in the jacket.
Yeah.
And that is where the first episode ends. Or the first half of the pilot.
Yeah, she honestly has her hand full with this guy. So this guy's supposed to, I guess, kind of be like jacked and also huge and also a vampire. So it like makes sense that he'd be so strong.
Yeah.
And it kind of looks like he's going to kill Buffy at the end of the first episode.
And that's how the season ended.
Yeah.
Oh, that's how the series ended.
To be continued. No, it doesn't. But so what how does she get out of this?
Well, then we have to talk about the harvest.
Yes. The harvest.
So, so she ends up winning. Let's see. They get Willow out of there. Xander it turns out that Xander was following Buffy, as he does. He gets Willow out,
Jesus, right?
and Buffy ends up narrowly escaping. And then, like, they're pretty far away, and they're like, oh my god, where's Jesse? Oh no.
Yeah. Well, you get, like, surrounded, right?
Yeah.
There's just, like, a ton of vampires.
They just
coming out of
ran.
the woodworks.
Yeah. Let's see. So then you have a scene between Giles, Willow, Xander, and Buffy, where Buffy is explaining vampires.
Right.
Because, like, she can't lie to these guys. So she's kind of explaining vampires. So here are the rules in the Buffy canon for how you kill a vampire. So you can kill them by either a stake through the heart or cutting off their head. Sunlight burns them, but can't kill if like the direct sunlight is on them for long enough. Mostly it'll just burn them. They can't be invited in, or they can't come into your house unless they're invited.
Right.
And they can drink human or animal blood.
Yeah, that's important.
Yes.
For future stuff. Yeah, because it's always an interesting thing, because you can't really have a good vampire, like a character who's a good guy and also a vampire, if you don't give them, like, an out of a substitute for human blood. So,
Yeah.
makes sense. Unless you're just raiding blood banks, I guess. But that's still morally gray.
That's a bad visual.
Yeah.
So let's see. So they spent a lot of time in the show explaining the rules of vampires because Joss thought the rules were, like, very important in the horror movie aspect of the genre, or the horror movie aspect of all of the genres put together, which became the show.
Right.
You can't just, like, make stuff up and then you break it and it means, like, nothing. You have to establish something so that when it does break, it means even more.
Right.
So you set up that kind of expectation with the audience. So there's, like, talking about Vampire Diaries. I know that your girlfriend really likes Vampire Diaries.
Yes. She had binged that real fast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Vampire Diaries, I think it's because of the way that it was a book and it got turned into a TV show. There are things that happen in the pilot episode of that show that never happen again.
Oh, interesting.
So, like, Damon,
Okay.
in the pilot episode, has the ability to turn into a crow.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not even a bat.
No.
Okay.
He's watching Elena in the graveyard at the beginning of the show as a crow.
Okay.
And it never happened. Like, it happens twice in that episode and then never again.
Interesting.
Same thing with he can get, like, fog to roll in. It happens in the first episode. Never again.
Interesting. That's so bizarre. No, I think...
It's got to be a book to TV show thing.
Yeah, it sounds like something that was, like, important in the book.
Yeah.
And then they're like,
We don't want to train a bunch of crows, and it's getting really expensive to bring in the trainers, so...
fog machines, just
Yeah.
the whole thing. Yeah, no, I think important in any, like, fictional universe, you gotta have the rules, because honestly, any story can have any weird elements that you want, and it can be good if you set up rules and then play by the rules that you set up. It's like, people get frustrated when it's like, oh, actually, this thing we never explained is a thing that can happen, and it saves the day, and that's how the thing gets resolved. People don't like that, you know?
Right. So let's see, what else? So there's another scene where you see the Master. Now, the Master is, like, the big bad of season 1.
Right.
And they decided to have him in vamp face all the time because the idea was that he was so old that he couldn't switch back and forth anymore. It was either he was so old or, like, he was just way too into himself and he just decided to be, like, a bad guy all the time.
Right.
So yeah, they kept him in, like, vamp face all the time. And so the idea is that he was in, like, a buried mission and he's trapped and is not strong enough to, like, be able to break out of that to get back to the surface. So he's been trapped underground for, like, a long, long time.
Right.
And it's, like, some sort of spell that's keeping him under there. which is why like his like Darla is like one of his minions basically, and she can come in and out as she pleases, but he's trapped under there.
Right.
So The Harvest, which is the episode we're talking about now, kind of one of the plot points is that he is trying to break out, and uses the big, like, muscly vampire from the end of last episode. I think his name's Luke.
Right.
I want to say his name's Luke.
Luca, something
Like that.
like that.
And like draws like a symbol thingy on his forehead, and it was like, go up to the surface, kill a bunch of people, suck their blood, your strength will transfer to me, and then I can break out.
Right.
So that's like one of the plot points of the episode. Let's see.
Is this the episode 2 where he pokes a guy's eye out?
No.
No, okay. It's the next episode.
I think so.
It's my favorite part. The favorite thing he ever does, because he makes a pun about it.
See, and if you had notes,
Right.
then you would know.
Yeah. It's not good on my part.
Live and learn. Oh my god. Okay. One of my favorite parts of this episode, which I think is really funny, it's totally a nerd thing,
Right.
is so they utilize like computers and technology when it makes sense. Right. And it's for things like
1997.
Yeah.
Remember? Yeah.
So when they need like quick access to information and stuff, they use computers. So there's a scene with Cordelia and Harmony. Harmony's one of Cordelia's like minions, basically. As Queen Bee of the high school.
Right.
I wouldn't call them friends. They're her minions. And so they're in computer class, and they've written like this little program or whatever. And Cordelia says, "Okay, we're done. How do we save it?" And Willow says, "Deliver."
Yeah.
And Cordelia looks down, and there's a key on her keyboard that says DEL, which for anybody who's ever used a computer is the delete button. But she's like, "Oh, deliver!" Hits the button, gone.
Yeah. So Willow owned her, basically.
Oh yeah, but it's
great.
okay because Cordelia had spent like the entire episode making fun of Willow. So yeah, the first time we're introduced to Willow, she's getting a drink out of the water fountain, and Cordelia comes up and starts making fun of her clothes for no reason.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's pretty mean.
yep. Let's see what else. Oh, the tunnels that are all over Sunnydale were a convenience to get from place to place.
Yep. For
Which-
the vampires.
yeah.
Makes sense.
Which like indicates to the audience that the tunnels go everywhere. Which I feel like at one point I looked up a map of Sunnydale, and they literally had like all of the tunnels.
Oh, really? That's
I think
cool.
so. But it's just like they just kind of go everywhere. Yeah, I'm basically out of notes. We can just talk about Jesse.
No, that's all right. So, Jesse, he is going to be used as bait, because originally they were going to just bring him to like help the master get stronger, right?
Right. Originally, they were just bringing him as like an offering to the master. So they kind of, I'm sorry, they kill Jesse. For anybody who doesn't already know, they kill Jesse and turn him into a vampire, which kind of it brings kind of another layer of vulnerability to Willow and Xander, only because like, oh my god, these were like 3 best friends,
Right.
and all of a sudden, first episode of the series, and they just killed off one of like the major characters that we've been introduced to.
Right.
So, they end up with Luke and Jesse and a bunch of the vampires going to the bronze, trying to like trap everybody in there, because the master needs like offerings, basically. So Luke starts trying to kill a bunch of people, and Buffy shows up, and Buffy's like, "No, this is my town. You
Right,
can't do
yeah.
this." And long story short, she ends up killing Luke, and Buffy.
It's a really funny like part where she smashes the window and
Yep.
there's the light, but it's just a regular yellow light
It's
outside.
a street light outside. It reminded me so much of Hocus Pocus
Yeah.
with the daylight savings time. It's like it's the middle of the night. It's not nighttime. Distraction. Hello, idiot. Bye bye. And she stakes him, and Jesse ends up getting staked by somebody. Like Xander's trying to like talk him down and be like, "Dude, like you're my best friend. I don't want to hurt you. Like please don't be evil." Blah blah blah. And somebody runs by and bumps Jesse into Xander, and he gets staked.
Yeah. When I was watching that with Jenny, she literally just like, that's so pathetic. just under her breath. It's like, yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
His whole story. Very pathetic.
So, yeah. So Jesse didn't make it through the pilot, which
No.
the funny thing about that is that Joss actually wanted to do an entire, like, different opening credits sequence that included Jesse for the pilot episode
That
to
would've been
subvert the expectation that he
Yeah.
was actually going to be a long-running character. And unfortunately, it ended up being too expensive to do it
Really? They
entirely.
couldn't just put him in.
Yeah,
Well, it would have. We wouldn't have picked up on it at first, but there would have been like only 2 episodes of footage for him.
Yeah.
So people would have been like, oh, that makes sense. Because everyone else has like a decent range of episode footage in their
Yeah.
little intro. So,
Yeah. So they wanted to do an entirely different opening credits, but they didn't get to do that.
oh man, poor Jesse.
So Jesse dies in the first episode, and then he is never mentioned again. Seriously, best buds ever.
Yeah. It was like, that's so funny because it reminds me of Walking Dead a few seasons ago. They like did a fake out death with one of the characters and they took his name out of the beginning credits for the episodes that he wasn't in.
Oh,
So
did
you're
they?
like, oh yeah, I guess he's dead. And then they were like, no, psych. It's not actually dead.
So, like, kind of in conclusion of the pilot episode, there are a lot of weaknesses, like there would be in any good pilot episode. So there's lots of exposition. There's lots of
Yes.
like getting to know the characters. It moves at like a semi-slow pace, which is really it's really nice that they had 2 episodes
Yes.
to kind of do a lot of this.
I agree.
However, there are definite like elements that were just absolute gold that were carried out. They were carried like throughout the entire rest of the seasons. You get quippy one-liners, fast-talking, smart dialogue, pulling on heartstrings, blurring the lines between genres. None of the characters dramatically change except for Jesse. But especially like between like seasons 1 and 2, the characters themselves stay pretty consistent.
Right.
You don't have like all of a sudden, oh, there's this entirely new aspect of this character that
Right.
they never gave any indication of. The only thing that really disappears is Xander's skateboarding, but that
Yeah.
was better off gone.
Well, yeah, they do change one character significantly, but we'll get to that because it's also a good transition to the next episode we're going to cover.
But before we finish this off,
Okay.
we wanted to do kind of like a rating system
Yes.
for the episodes. So this is going to be between 1 and 10 stakes
Okay.
because that's what you and I came up with like a year ago. We can always
Right.
change it.
So no, hey, it makes
So,
sense.
so without looking at my notes to see what my rating is, what rating would you give this episode out of 10 stakes?
All right, and so we're doing there's no half stakes. It's just whole numbers, right?
Yes.
All right. I would say honestly, this is for like a pilot, a solid like 8 out of 10. It sets everything up. You have a good idea of the dynamic. It sets up like a good way to be like, okay, this is going to be a monster every week. There's a different threat every week. And it does give like a season-long storyline and a season-long villain for the show. I think it's about as good as you can get with a pilot, especially back then when TV's like really different than it is now. Mostly, I mean that people put way more effort into TV shows than they did back then. But yeah, I think an 8 out of 10 for me. What about you? What's your 10 out of 10?
No.
An 8? Oh my God. On the same page. What's up?
So yeah, I mean, there are just pieces that are in that episode that are just gold, and I don't know if like the episode isn't necessarily as strong as I think it is, and it's totally just the nostalgia factor of it. But I love this episode, and it's like I have a list of like really 4 or 5 must-watch episodes of the first season, and this 2-part are definitely 2 of those episodes.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. I think if it hadn't been as good as this, it probably doesn't propel the show. And there's a lot of good episodes in this first season. Don't get me wrong, but I'm sure when people saw this, it was like, oh yeah, I like this. I'll definitely keep watching it. And hey, we're talking about it now, 22 years later, starting off a brand new show.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to add before we?
Nope. Next episode we'll be talking about the witch first. So.
Yes. What's the required watching if people want to watch along? We're going to talk about the next 5 episodes, right?
So, hold on, I gotta switch I have too many documents going on.
That's it. That's all right.
So the next episode, which is going to be really season 1, part 1 for us, is The Witch, Teacher's Pet, Never Kill a Boy on the First Date, The Pack, and Angel.
All right. All pretty solid episodes from just looking at the titles, if I'm remembering. This show does a great job with their first season. It really hits the ground running and doesn't stop. Other than this one episode that's like, I don't think you actually needed this, but I guess it kind of does help character development. We'll get into it. Jill, where can they find you online?
If they want to, they can find me on Twitter. I really don't use it, but
who knows?
If people
this is gonna come out in like a month, and maybe by then you'll have started using Twitter more.
As I said in the last episode, give me a reason to use Twitter.
Yeah, so everybody go follow her.
So I'm at Jillian_Swan, and that's Swan with 2 N's.
So there you have it. You can find me on Twitter at @theFakeBMar. That's BMARR. Of course, you can find the channel on Twitter at WG Everything, on Instagram at Wicked. Oh, goodness, I messed it up. And I'm just talking about how good I was at this spiel. You can find us on Instagram at WickedGoodEverything, on Twitch at twitch.tv/WickedEverything. Of course, the main channel is youtube.com/WickedEverything. And this channel is Wicked Good Podcast. So you have to search that because we don't have a custom URL yet.
We're working on it.
Yeah, we need 100 subscribers, and maybe by the time this comes out, we'll have it. I don't know. I can't see the future. Thank you guys so much for watching. Rate us on iTunes. Share it with your friends who are also into Buffy. And we'll see you in the next episode. The Sunnydale Review is a Wicked Good Everything production. The fan art of Buffy was created by Fishbone Art. The logo was created by Tamar Kutab. The original intro and outro song was created by Alex Carl.